We're not wrong. You're wrong. Well, not you, but the experts. Today, we're talking 6 running backs that the experts are completely wrong on and where they should be going instead in your fantasy drafts. And Ty, you're not even going to come out slow. I mean, you're coming out swinging right out the gates. I got to assume which way you're going because Jonathan Taylor right now is ranked as the running back 4 on the Fantasy Pros expert consensus rankings. So I'm assuming you're not going up because there isn't much way, but maybe you are. Maybe you're surprising me. Why do you think the experts are wrong on Jonathan Taylor? And for the people at home, this is redraft, all right? We're not in Dynasty right now. We are in redraft 2026 season.
So when it comes to Jonathan Taylor, it's not the fact that it's not that I'm doubting him as a talent. It's not the fact that I'm doubting the upside that Jonathan Taylor has, because we did see what the upside was last year, where Jonathan Taylor is ripping off multiple touchdown games. And I should say he's ripping off multiple touchdown games. Like, he had 3 touchdowns in week 3 against Tennessee, 3 touchdowns against Las Vegas in week 5, 3 touchdowns against the Chargers in week 7, 3 touchdowns against the Falcons in week 10. And that was all before their bye week. My concern is the downside that Jonathan Taylor also possesses because of how fringy or how fragile of a situation he really is in Indianapolis at this point. Because I think a lot of the success that he found at the beginning half of the year was also because we were seeing a lot of good quarterback play from Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones goes down with an Achilles injury, and he will likely start week 1 at this point. But the big question that I'm going to have is, well, how good is Daniel Jones going to be off of that Achilles? Because we saw what happened when Daniel Jones was completely out of the offense, where Jonathan Taylor, I don't want to say he was a shell of himself, but there was a massive drop off in efficiency from Jonathan Taylor. He went 2.9 yards per carry, 3.3 yards per carry, 1.9 yards per carry, right? So all of that to say, I understand the upside that Jonathan Taylor has, and that's probably the main argument as to still having him as a top 5 running back, in expert consensus rankings. But I don't believe that ranking fully bakes in or fully weighs the amount of downside that Jonathan Taylor truly has going into this year, where, yes, guys like James Cook, Devon Achane, then it's Genty, Chase Brown, Saquon Barkley. Like, you can, again, I can understand the upside. I can understand the argument as to why Jonathan Taylor is kind of above those guys. But at the same time, I'm like, if I'm in a draft and I'm staring down Jonathan Taylor and James Cook at the 109, 110, I think I'm leaning James Cook, just because I don't have the worry about the fragileness of James Cook's situation in Buffalo than I do with Jonathan Taylor. That may change as the summer goes on, as we get more information about the Colts and how Daniel Jones is looking and all those kind of things. But that's just my main gripe, is I'm just not sure that a running back 4 ranking, and even, like, I know, again, we're keeping this to Fantasy Pros, on Underdog right now, he's a running back 3. That one's steep to me too. I should say even more steep, it's more difficult for me to take Jonathan Taylor because that's closer to the first half of the first round. So all that to say, good player, understand the talent and the upside, but I don't think this fully bakes in the risk and the downside that JT has going into this year.
So I hear what you're saying, and I feel a lot of the same ways, but for me at the same time, I feel like I'm betting against Derrick Henry here, essentially, he's just not going to do it again. And I said that for so long, and Derrick Henry kept doing it. But at the same time, right, Jonathan Taylor had 20 touchdowns last season. If he goes to what, Derrick Henry had, who had 16, obviously Jonathan Taylor has more receiving upside than a Derrick Henry. But if Taylor goes to that, those 16 touchdowns, I mean, Derrick Henry had 16.5 PPR points. I put him as the running back 7, right? If Jonathan Taylor finished at the running back 7, where you're taking him in the middle of the first round, that would be a little bit disappointing, right? It wouldn't kill your season or anything. And that's not what you're saying. Like, I don't want people to say that you're calling him a bust. You just think it's a tough pill to swallow. So I'm going to name game you here, and we'll go quick, but this will be easy, right? Because Ty's in 1,000 drafts right now, so he's made this decision over and over. But these are all guys that are going right around in that same tier on the expert consensus rankings over on Fantasy Pros, and also in underdog drafts. But like you already said, Christian McCaffrey, you're taking over Taylor. Expert consensus rankings has it here too. Amon-Ra, who are you going, him or Taylor?
I'm going Amon-Ra.
CeeDee Lamb?
Man, because I hate to admit it, the Dak Prescott even year thing has really got me thinking at this point. But I think more times than not, I'm going to lean CD still.
All right. Justin Jefferson.
That's the Jefferson one. That one's pretty easy for me.
James Cook. You already said James Cook, right?
I do lean James Cook here.
Ashton Genty.
I think at that point I would go JT.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it still feels like we're asking a lot for Ashton Genty to finish like top 3 versus Jonathan Taylor. I hate to use like we've seen it before because it feels like kind of a cop out in this scenario, but like again, because I have seen it with Jonathan Taylor work in the past to where like again, Jonathan Taylor was arguably like he wasn't the most valuable because it was Christian McCaffrey, but JT was right there, right behind him. So that one I would go JT.
So just gives you an idea of where the people, where Tyler's at. I gotta say, like, I do think there is gonna be some regression incoming. I don't know how much more it's gonna be than where like James Cook was at. Jonathan Taylor over the last 5 years is the first running back to have 300 carries and then have more the next season. So, I mean, the first time he did in 2021, he went down 192, obviously battled ankle injuries. Josh Jacobs went from 340 to 233. Derrick Henry went from 349 to 280. And you're going to say, well, Cameron, there was injuries baked into most of these seasons. That's the point, right? High mileage running backs get hurt more often. That's just something that happens. Josh Jacobs, again, 2024, 2025, 301 to 234. Saquon Barkley, last year to this season, 345 to 280. It's just hard to maintain that sort of pace. The touchdowns are hard to maintain. Again, like you said, if the quarterback play isn't there, there is a lot going against him. I don't know if I'd say I disagree necessarily with where I'm at because I'm sure that's where he's going to finish for me. But I will say I do have a hard time picking him where he's going because I do understand the downside that comes with drafting Jonathan Taylor at this point. My guy, I'm going to go the opposite way, Ty, and I'm pretty sure you don't have any gripes with this one because you're right. Yeah. Javonte Williams is going to be, I kind of feel like he's going to be our new Monty-esque kind of guy for the next couple of years I think he has more upside than Monty, right? I'm not calling, but just where us three as fellas, every time we see him pop up that we're talking about him, we're all like, I can relax. We're not arguing. We're all on the same page. We're pro Javonte. He's kind of taking that mantle because let's be honest. What changed in this Dallas backfield from last season? Nothing. Nothing has changed. And we're talking about the guy who finished as the running back 12 in points per game and the running back 11 overall. Coming off 252 carries, 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns, had another 50 targets. I just don't see why all of a sudden we're going, okay, now he's running back 17. Over Breece Hall, who's on the list. I love Breece, but he's playing with the Jets in a crowded offense that doesn't have a good quarterback. Why are we going Breece here over Javonte? Because he might catch more passes? Like, I don't know. For me, it just feels silly that you're looking at a guy who's probably going to finish the top 12 running back, and we're going, yeah, I feel comfortable taking him at 17. It's like, for me in drafts, I see him at 17 every time. I'm like, all right, I have Javonte Williams on my team again. Like, he might be one of my highest drafted running backs by the end of the summer.
I mean, this is essentially a bet on the Dallas offense, right? Very similar to how I obviously don't want to take running backs in the running back dead zone, but like that's my argument for investing in DeAndre Swift still, because I'm like, want a piece of the Bears offense. And Javonte's going at a point in drafts, at a price in drafts where I just want a piece of that offense. And it's low enough where I'm like, I can still recover a bit if I'm if it's a weird build at that point, if I've got Javonte as my running back 3 or something like that, like I can recover still enough. So I fully on board with this. This is probably like the poster child of just like, why?
Yeah.
Like you said, like we're talking about a guy that was he was a top 12 running back last year. And we're putting him at 17 because regression, maybe. But like you said, nothing has changed.
Yeah.
So obviously, like Javonte may carry maybe a bigger injury risk tag just because of his past, but like I don't care. I'm looking at what I see right in front of me, and I'm going, this is a top 15 guy at minimum, top 15.
Yeah, I mean, that was his third year removed from tearing his ACL. It wasn't like he had insane volume either, right? He had 250 carries, 30 receptions. Like that's pretty average for a 3-down back, and that's what he's going to be again. He was actually super inefficient through the year. Only had 137 receiving yards on 35 receptions. So we could see receiving work get better this year. For me, it just doesn't add up why we're knocking him for nothing changing going into this. It's essentially like what we did with Quinshon Williams last year. Like I feel like we're going to get a non-story come out about Javonte Williams of, oh my gosh, they're mixing in Malik Davis more on third downs, and everyone's going to be, oh, I don't know. And then it's going to, what are we doing here? So that's where I'm at with him. I'm not going to talk anymore because I'm just going to go in circles about how silly I think it is. We'll go to your guy, Quinshon Judkins, because Ty, I'll be honest, I'm interested where you're going with this one. So I'll just let you have the floor on Quinshon here. Which direction are you going?
I when I chose my players, I was definitely thinking more of a heel than a face because I was down on JT and I'm down on Judkins. Because the simple question that I asked myself about Judkins going into this year is, what is the upside? Yeah. What is the upside for Judkins? We know that he can handle volume. And this isn't, I don't want to get into the whole injury discussion about like, how good is he going to be coming back from the injury and all that kind of stuff. Just based on what we saw last year, it was a guy that could handle volume, but the offense that he's in and their ability to score severely caps his upside. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, I know you bring in Todd Monken, which is a change from the Kevin Stefanski offense, but also what has changed in this Cleveland offense, you ask me? Well, an entirely new offensive line with, I don't want to say it's the island of misfit toys in Cleveland now when it comes to their offensive line, but
that'd be their quarterback room.
Actually, it might just be both at this. The more I think about it, it's probably both. But like I feel like it's not that we're jumping the gun because running back 21 still isn't it's not the most egregious ranking, right? But to fully understand the upside case for a guy like Quinshon Judkins, I would say we're at least a year or two out still, because there's a lot that needs to come together for this Cleveland offense, in my opinion, that we're not going to see in year one. So Judkins, yes, volume guy, you know exactly what you're getting with Judkins, but you have to ask yourself, what is the upside? It's not going to come in touchdowns, right? Could he be, I guess, Walmart's Montgomery?
Yeah.
Like, could he be? Sure. Because he could get like 250 carries. He could finish with 9-10 touchdowns. But then the next question we ask ourselves, is he going to get any receiving work? Mm-hmm. I don't think he's going to be racking up the receptions either. So this is just one of those things where I'm not sure what the upside is. You know exactly what you're getting. So maybe it's a high floor, but it's just a low ceiling. And he's probably going to be going in a range in your drafts where it is the traditional running back dead zone. So do you really want to be investing in some of those running backs in that range? Like Travion, DeAndre Swift, maybe the only two guys that I would at least be interested in. But for Judkins, I'm just like, I really don't want to be invested in this Cleveland offense just yet, because I think there's going to be some growing pains in year one where it's going to reflect then in fantasy scores. And then we're looking at Quinshon Judkins closer to running back 30 than a 20 And we're going, well, why do we waste such a high pick on Judkins then?
Yeah, I like what you're saying though about the upside. It's just like, do you think he finishes over Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall, Kyron Williams, Travis
Yeah,
Etienne?
is he a top 20 guy?
It's hard to see the case. I don't truly understand how they have Javonte and Travis Etienne in the same tier as it's like Bucky, Cam Scadaboo, like that feels right. I'm taking Travion Henderson. I'm taking DeAndre Swift. I'm probably taking Montgomery over Quinshon Judkins right now pretty easily. Monty, I talked about last week of I'm a little iffy on Monty, but at the same time, I trust the offense, I think, more, which is crazy to say with the way CJ Stroud looked in the playoffs last year. But I for sure trust the defense more now that Myles Garrett's out of town, right? I mean, Houston's going to have one of the top 5, probably top 3 defenses in the NFL. They're going to just be able to put the ball on the ground. When you have a guy like Judkins who needs receiving work, or doesn't get receiving work, sorry, and is going to be in a more pass-heavy script, that just doesn't bode well, especially if it's Deshaun Watson, who they're showing videos of him out running, designing quarterback runs. So it's like, what happens then? Not that I think he's going to run a ton coming off the Achilles, but what happens then? So I just think there's a lot of question marks out there for them, and there's not a lot that seems like he's going to be able to answer this season. Like, it doesn't take away from the fact that I think he's extremely talented. It's just he's in the worst situation Quinshon Judkins, a player, could possibly be in for fantasy.
Well, again, it's just how good can it really be? Yep. We saw Judkins start off really hot, 6.1, 5.2, 4.8 yards per carry. But then I kid you not, from week 6 to week 16 before he got hurt, he only had one game with 4 yards per carry or more, which maybe that improves just because it's a schematic change in Cleveland with Todd Monken. But again, I think the overarching theme of this is just like, hey, we're asking a lot of Judkins in his current situation to be that top 20 guy when there are guys going behind him or will likely go behind him or around him in drafts that probably have the better chance of doing so.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog, where you can get into the game this season playing Pick'em. It's extremely simple. Just pick higher or lower on 2 or more of your favorite players. For example, I'll pick the higher on Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Xavier Worthy. If I played $10 and got all 3 of them right, I would win $60 just by watching football. And that's the beauty of Pick'em. You can track your picks and your wins while you enjoy the game. Now, if you're not on Underdog yet, scan the QR code on your screen or use our code FELLAS when you sign up, because new customers will get $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5 on the app. Plus, Underdog will give you a free pick to use in your first entry. Again, that's code FELLAS over on Underdog. Now let's get you back to the rest of the show.
And before we get into these last 3 guys, Ty, I feel like we need to warn the viewers. We're going gross. The first 3 guys were not quite as gross. Not gross at all, I would say. These next 3, especially this first one. I might pull this first one up and people turn off the video right here. But I'm talking Jonathan Brooks, and I don't care. If you're watching on YouTube, you see his screens. It's a lot of zeros, and not good zeros, just zeros with not other numbers. He did not play last season. What did I see his stats were? He has 9 career carries for 22 rushing yards, 3 targets, 3 receptions for 23 yards. His longest carry of his career is 9 yards. He has more torn ACLs in the NFL than he has touchdowns. However, the fact that we're taking a guy at running back 45, who by all accounts seems to be healthy now, I take that for what you will, right? When we're talking about Jonathan Brooks, seems to be healthy, and we're just burying him down draft boards. But for me, he's still highly touted, and he's gonna get an opportunity. Like, they just don't have anybody else. And if you watch Carolina last season, you remember that Rico Dowdle played really good because he just took control of the backfield from Chuba Hubbard, who I know battled injury. But that doesn't exactly give me confidence that Chuba's the guy here that, has to be starting, that there isn't a path for Brooks. So, again, this is all hinging on the fact that I've seen a couple training camp videos. No, I'm just kidding. This is all hinging on the fact that he has the path to upside, and so I understand. I just think for me, personally, in drafts right now, I'm looking at him a lot closer to running back 40 than I am back here at 45, even a little bit higher, because I'd rather take the upside shot on, you know what? Yeah, he's had some of the worst luck, right? J.K. Dobbins-esque luck so far in his NFL career. But if he can put it together this season and be healthy, he has a shot on a team that I think might just surprise people again, right? And not in like they're going to go 12-5, but they're going to be a 9-8 squad maybe this season and be in the hunt for a playoff spot once again. So that's what it comes down to for me is I just think there's enough upside case here that it feels like we're just completely burying this guy. And maybe it is they're just more risk adverse, which you probably should be with Jonathan Brooks. I just can't, I just find myself taking him. Wow, I can't even get the words out. I'm just so choked up about Jonathan Brooks. I just find myself taking him so often in drafts.
I mean, if you get J.K. Dobbins out of Jonathan Brooks,
yeah,
you're going to be happy with that. Even if he does miss time at some point during the year, you're going to be happy with what you get if you get a J.K. Dobbins type year. Now, Dobbins obviously is kind of like 1A in Denver. At least he was last year, maybe changes this year, but like that's the only difference. That's the only like difference that you can, or like the difference in comparison between Jonathan Brooks and J.K. Dobbins. But the point is, if you are going to get a guy, like you said, that's likely going to get an opportunity this year that can make the most of it because of how this backfield played last year. You can do a lot worse. I mean, Zach Charbonnet is targeting like a mid-season return.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me that people are going to invest more in Charbonnet than Jonathan Brooks? Tyjae Spears, who knows what that Tennessee backfield's going to look like? And I know those are going behind him, but it's like there are people that are still going to look at them and go, I'm not so sure about Jonathan Brooks. And that's coming from the guy that isn't the Jonathan Brooks guy among the three of us. I am kind of the Jonathan Brooks hater here. So it's just a simple like cost theory of just like you have nothing to lose at running back 45 with Jonathan Brooks. And he has probably the best opportunity among the guys from 43, 42 to 52.
Yeah, 100%. And like, this is a little bit of draft theory for you. If you're coming back here and you're like, hey, I've just missed on every running back. I need something for upside, or I just need someone who's going to score me points for sure. Maybe Jonathan Brooks isn't the answer, but if you've got three solid running backs, you're like, why not take a shot on the fourth guy who's just going to be, I could actually put into my lineup? Jonathan Brooks is the guy. And that's probably the position I'm going to find myself in quite a bit. And I know I have in underdog draft so far. I'm assuming here, Ty, you said you were the heel. You're sticking with that with Rhamondre Stevenson, or are you going to flip it on me and you're just going to give me this anti-Travion narrative that you've been peddling all off season?
It's not anti-Travion. It's just like the gap needs to close a little bit between Rhamondre and Travion. That's all I'm saying.
I thought, all right, we're on different pages. I think it needs to widen, but that's all right. You go ahead.
Wow. That is, hey, I will say that's a microcosm of what it feels like with Rhamondre Stevenson at this point. Of he should be a lot closer. Obviously, like it's the only two places to be. You can be closer to Travion or further away, but like there are those people that are like the gap needs to be like, hey, Travion's running back 22, Rhamondre is running back 26. There are the people then like you that are like Travion's running back 1 and Rhamondre is like running back 10,001 behind Jonathan Brooks last year kind of gap. So all that I really see when I like running back 32 for Rhamondre Stevenson feels like we're over predicting, over projecting, over penalizing Rhamondre by giving Travion too much volume or too much work off of Rhamondre's plate, when I believe that this backfield is still going to be a pretty even split in terms of on-field splits and usage and all that kind of stuff. Yes, Travion was the guy that finished the strongest last year, or at least had the most touches between the two, but it was Rhamondre that was still on the field the most often. And I have to, and That's not to say that I think Rhamondre will finish ahead of Travion by season's end. That's not to say that I don't think Travion has, I'll be honest, a path to being like a top 20. I'll be cautious. I was about to say 15, but I'll be cautious and just say 20. Like Travion still has that path even with Rhamondre in this backfield, but I don't think, like I said, that Rhamondre is going to take a substantial piece off of Rhamondre's plate to push Rhamondre behind the likes of RJ Harvey, Rico Dowdle. I still believe Rhamondre is going to be involved. He's still going to be a factor in this offense, and that he should be closer to Travion than he is further away from him. So this is going to be the great debate all offseason long, because again, we disappointed ourselves with the expectations we had for Travion last year, that it feels like, okay, it's year 2. It should finally happen. I might be one of the only few people that just kind of exercises some patience and go, well, maybe it's a cost theory. It's a cost analysis. And I just go, I know both are going to be on the field. If I'm going to get obviously some great ceilings with Travion, but some valleys and some really low lows, but I know that Rhamondre is going to give me a consistent 8 to 10, 11 points a game, and I'm getting him cheaper. Maybe it's not the worst idea.
So my thing with Rhamondre is
he sucks. I get it. He sucks.
Coming back from injury after week 12, even though he played more snaps in 3 of those games, he only had 1 game with over 8 carries. He did a lot of damage through big runs. He had good receiving work at the end of the season. I'm under the assumption that Travion is going to move more into that passing role. So they trust him more going into year 2, because he just is so much more of a dynamic back in space, right? Obviously, Rhamondre, when he gets going, he gets going. But if I have to pick between the two of who I want to have open in space, it's Travion Henderson. 5 touchdowns to close out the season, or 6 touchdowns, excuse me, in his last 3 weeks, close out the season last year. Inflates the numbers a little bit for me. So that's where I'm kind of pumping the brakes on Rhamondre. And again, I mean, it might just be I'm just so too optimistic for Travion that I got the blinders on. Like I'll admit that could definitely be where I'm at. Because when I looked at that tier that we were talking about with Javonte and Quinshon, I'm like, ooh, I would have Travion right behind Javonte. So, that's, again, a lot of people don't agree with that. So that's where I'm coming with that. So I understand what you're saying of he's going to be a factor. He's got a large enough contract that they're going to factor him in. He's a good enough running back, as a big guy, especially as that kind of yin and yang with Travion Henderson. So I get all of that. I understand what you're saying. I don't think the upside's enough for me there. And maybe upside case isn't the greatest, because I like Kyle Monunga and Blake Corum and Aaron Jones and Rachaad White all in that same area. And I wouldn't exactly say upside for any of those guys, but I don't know. I think it's just because I'm too in on Travion that I can't convince myself to do the same for Rhamondre.
I mean, think about this, right? You just look at the names in front of Rhamondre, right? Rico Dowdle, RJ Harvey, and then the next 3. I'll say the next 2 offenses. That puts them at, that would be the right back 28. We're looking at Carolina, we're looking at Tennessee, we're looking at Denver, and we're looking at Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I would rather invest in the New England offense, especially when I know, again, that Rhamondre is still going to be a factor in this. He's going to be a piece in this offense. Yes, RJ Harvey, like Denver may be the better offense than New England this year. I don't know if people are ready to have that conversation just yet, but Denver may have the better offense of those teams that I listed, but I do believe that Rhamondre is going to be in the second best offense with a more solidified role than an RJ Harvey will, that could push Rhamondre to running back 28. And so it's not a ginormous leap, but it's also just like, hey, like we've been saying with some of these other guys, it's just investing in their offense. And Rhamondre running back 32, Monunga 33, Corum at 34. Those are offenses that I want a piece of.
For sure. And talking about investing in offenses, that's exactly what I'm doing here with Rachaad White, is investing in a Commander's offense that was on a down year, new offensive coordinator in town. I still believe in Jane Daniels. The reason I'm going Rachaad White over Bill Krusky-Merritt, over Kaytron Allen, is because Rachaad White is far and away the best pass catcher of this group. I don't think it's particularly close. I understand he's on what a $2 million contract, so it's not like, oh, they have to keep him, they have to use him. But he's a guy who's shown, hey, I can handle carries. Not overly efficient, but you put me in this role with, Jane Daniels, where he's going to open up a little more running lanes for me. I think he sees enough work, and especially through the receiving game, which again, Jane Daniels is going to run the ball, might not throw a ton. But for me, that's where I'm coming at with Rachaad White of this feels like this backfield's open for anybody. And if he can come in, be the veteran who can play all 3 downs, I don't think he's going to be necessarily a 3-down back. I think it's going to be a split no matter what. But if he can show, hey, you can put me down in there on any down, I think he's going to get the bulk of the carries, bulk of the workload. And so that's really what it is I'm betting on the fact that he's going to be more efficient from a fantasy perspective and scoring fantasy points and doing things that are better for fantasy, scoring touchdowns, catching passes on an offense that's going to rebound this season and be much better than they were last year. Like that's if I had to sum it up, that's where I'm at with Rachaad White.
That's the reason why you would invest in a running back of the Washington Commanders. Obviously, like Quinshon Allen is going to be a bit of an enigma throughout the offseason just because he's going to be going so much later, but I don't think anybody expects him to really get onto the field until like second half of the year at best, probably, because I'll be honest, if this Washington offense bounces back like a lot of us are expecting them to do, and it's Rachaad White and it's Bill Krosky-Mara in some kind of split backfield and some kind of timeshare, but if they're bouncing back and they're towards the top of the NFC, sorry, Quinshon Allen is not going to be a factor in that offense. No. They're not going to change anything. And I think I'm also with you from the stance of like, hey, Rachaad White, he may not get all of the most valuable carries out of the backfield, but he's definitely going to get the receiving work, right? Yeah. So you can kind of make up for it with that receiving work advantage, I would call it. Rachaad White probably isn't going to be a top 24 guy by year's end, but could he have a Rico Dowdle-esque? He's not paid a lot of money. He's in this backfield, but he's the most experienced guy, or he's one of the most experienced guys. He can handle workloads, so is the offense going to trust him a bit more off the, right away out of the gate? Certainly possible. And if they bounce back really well, then Rachaad White might just have a hold on this backfield then more than we expect. So it's not an exciting pick, but this is just a like, hey, he will go in a range of your drafts where it's going to be pretty easy to convince yourself, like, you know what, why not take the shot on Rachaad White? He's going to be my running back 4 probably on my team. Why not? Because if I get a flex play out of him week in, week out, that's a big win in my draft.
For sure. And he's shown he's durable too, right? He's missed 1 game in his entire career. So he's a guy who's always out there.
Oh, you just jinxed it. So
yeah, no, that's probably
unfortunate.
I that was in time, 5-second rule. So he'll be fine now. But yeah, I don't know. Again, I told you we're gonna get gross this back half. We did. We talked about Jonathan Brooks, Rhamondre Stevenson, and Rachaad White, why they're good picks. So welcome to 2026. But that's all I got for us today. We're gonna do wide receivers on the next episode. Hopefully, Lucas, who has been sick, is back. At any time, I could drop off. I could be done for a couple of weeks. So we are in that time period where might have baby Lawrence at any point. So if I'm not here, could be it, could be something else. But I want to warn the audience. But yeah, that'll do it for us this week. If you want to follow us on the socials, FFL is on the X for the Fellas main page. I'm at Camel FFF, Tyler_Plath for Tyler. The FFL is on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, and Fantasy Football Fellas Shorts if you want the short form over on YouTube. Well, with that, go do some drafts, make some Dynasty trades. We'll see you on what day does it come out? Thursday.
Deuces.